right, hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of Breakfast by the Bay. This is season 2, brought to you by 11th Hour Racing. My name is Letty, and I'm going to be your host today to teach you all about Diamondback terrapins and how they are affected by sea level rise. But before we get to that, I do want to remind you to subscribe to Save the Bay's channel. It's very easy to do. There's a button right underneath me talking, and you can just click the subscribe. Also, if you're watching from a school today, please let us know. We want to know what viewers are tuning in. If you have any questions during this segment, I have Captain Chris behind the camera. He's going to be monitoring the comment section, so if you have any questions, you can just drop them in there and he'll be able to answer them for you. I think that's all we have for that, so let's just get into today's topic. So today we are going to be exploring something called climate change and how it affects diamondback terrapins. So you may have heard the term climate change before, but what is it exactly? Well, climate change just basically describes the long-term changes in our weather patterns. So we are talking long-term patterns, not just day-to-day. So a majority of this warming is due to the fact that humans burn things called fossil fuels. So fossil fuels are anything like oil, gas, and coal. And when we burn these fossil fuels, we release a gas called carbon dioxide into the atmosphere. That carbon dioxide allows light to come into our atmosphere, but it does not let heat escape. The easiest way to imagine this is to think of a greenhouse. You've probably heard the greenhouse effect before. A greenhouse is made of glass, so it allows light to come in, but the heat from the sun is trapped in that glass box. So that's kind of what's happening with the Earth. Now, when this happens, this excess heat that's trapped in our atmosphere ends up warming our oceans. Now, I'm not going to get too complex with this today because my friends Captain Eric and Captain Jen will be doing an experiment with you in a few weeks to demonstrate sea level rise. So right now, I'll just leave you with that. The excess heat is warming our oceans. So when our oceans warm up, what happens? Well, there's a couple things. First off, those ice caps that we always hear about, those big glaciers, are actually melting. And when they melt, they're adding water into our oceans. And although that does impact our oceans and is causing our sea level rise, the main driver for sea level rise is actually something called thermal expansion. So water has this really interesting property where when it heats up, it expands and actually takes up more space. And so, because we're increasing the temperature of our planet, the ocean water is getting warmer, expanding, and taking up more space. So this is what's really causing our oceans to rise. Now, if our sea levels are rising, that means that all of our coastal land is in danger of flooding. So this includes all types of habitats that are in danger of flooding, but today I'm just going to focus on two habitats, salt marshes and sandy beaches. Now, these salt marshes and sandy beaches are very important in the Narragansett Bay habitat. Over the past 90 years, so since 1930, our oceans, or Narragansett Bay, has risen 7 inches. And it's expected by the year 2100 that the ocean, or Narragansett Bay, will rise at least 12 more inches. So that's a conservative estimate that the sea level will rise 12 more inches by the year 2100. So what does that mean for all the animals that rely on our coastline to survive? Well, that's what we're going to talk about today. So I'd like for you to meet a couple of our diamondback terrapins that we have at our aquarium. So these are aquatic turtles that like to live in, just exclusively like to live in brackish water. And they nest in salt marshes and sandy beaches. So These are actually the only turtles that we know of in the world that exclusively prefer brackish water and estuaries. So they kind of found a niche where they would be able to live and survive without much competition. So Diamondback terrapins are what we call an obligate species. That means that they almost always live in the same place under the same conditions. And for them, their favorite place to hang out and survive is salt marshes. So just this past summer, new populations of Diamondback terrapins were actually found in upper Narragansett Bay. This was in the Barrington area. They normally keep the locations under wraps just so they can survive without anyone bothering them. But these new populations being found can definitely be attributed to the conservation efforts going towards Diamondback terrapins. Now, the important thing about Diamondback terrapins is that they are listed as near threatened by the federal government, but here in Rhode Island, they're actually considered an endangered species. So, if an animal is an endangered species, that means that it is at risk for extinction. So, if an animal is going to go extinct, how is that happening? Why are any animals endangered and possibly going extinct? Well, it's easy to remember the reasons for animals that are endangered or why animals might be going extinct by remembering the acronym HIPPO. So, I hope you can see this, but if you remember the acronym HIPPO, these are the 5 main reasons why animals might go extinct in the world or in the wild. So HIPPO. The first one would be habitat loss, invasive species being introduced to a habitat, pollution, population growth of humans, and overharvesting. Now a lot of these, or almost all of these reasons, are due to human interference. So, if we're looking at these, I started the ones that are most impacting Diamondback terrapins. So let's talk about this a little. Habitat loss. We know that Diamondback terrapins like to live in salt marshes and sandy beaches. So if they like to live in those salt marshes and sandy beaches, well, first off, sea level rise is a huge issue. As we've already discussed, we're going to lose part of those coastlines because of sea level rise over the next 80 years. Also, humans like to go to the beach and live on the beach. So if we're taking over those areas, that means that there's actually less space for Diamondback terrapins to live and survive. The next one I was talking about was P, population growth. So population growth of humans is a huge determinant in how many Diamondback terrapins are in the wild. Once again, our population is growing at an accelerated rate, and we are moving to all the places where Diamondback terrapins like to lay their eggs and survive. Not only that, but we're building houses near and on beaches. So if the human population is expanding and everyone wants to live on and near these beaches, then once again there's going to be even less space for the Diamondback terrapins. So these two definitely go hand in hand. Now the last one, overharvesting, is another reason why Diamondback terrapins numbers are very low. Not so much a problem anymore, but about 200 years ago, people actually harvested Diamondback terrapins to make something called turtle soup. This was considered a delicacy, so Diamondback terrapins were hunted and sold and traded around the world to make this turtle soup. It's not an issue anymore, but when that happened, their population sizes shrunk, and it takes a very long time to recover from your population being decimated so greatly. And then there is one last reason, and it also goes with the overharvesting, and that's just that Diamondback terrapins are a highly decorated species. So people actually like to have these turtles as pets. You can see that their shell has this really intricate pattern, and that's why they're called Diamondback terrapins, because they're this really beautiful pattern that they have on the shell. So people value this and want to have them as pets because they're so pretty to look at. Okay, so if our sea level is rising and our marshes are disappearing, these turtles don't stand a chance. With all those other factors, human population growth, habitat loss, and overharvesting for the pet trade, yeah, turtles, if they're losing their more habitat to sea level rise, then it's just not going to look great for them. So what can we do about this? There's a lot of things, but first I want to actually have you meet our 3 turtles that we have here so that you can kind of form a kinship with them. So we have 3 turtles that live here at the Save the Bay Aquarium, or 3 diamondback terrapins that live here. First one you already met, and this is our female turtle, Phyllis. So Phyllis is a female turtle, and female diamondback terrapins grow about 50% larger than their male counterparts. So if you see a diamondback terrapin that's about this size, you could pretty much assume that this is going to be a female turtle. Perfect. So you can see that Phyllis has this highly ornamental shell, and if you look at the rings on a diamondback terrapin, and you count the amount of rings in one scoot, you can actually find out how old that turtle is. So if you ever see a turtle, maybe you come to our aquarium and you want to count the amount of rings on their scoots, you can figure out exactly how old these turtles are, which I always thought was pretty cool. Now, Phyllis and all these other animals came to us because they probably could not survive in the wild. We have Jerry right here, and he was taken from the wild because he's actually missing his upper jaw. So let me see if I can get that in here for you. So you can see Jerry right here, and his upper jaw was missing. So he was taken from the wild, and he needs to be able to crack open shellfish and eat anything with those hard shells in order to survive. But because he's missing that upper jaw, he's not able to do that. So here at the aquarium, we take care of him, we feed him things where he doesn't have to crack the shell open, and he's surviving pretty well. But it's important to remember that we would never take these turtles out of the wild unless they wouldn't be surviving. And then finally, I wonder if we can see Bob back here. Perfect. So our last turtle here is Bob. This is another male diamondback terrapin, and he was originally someone's pet. They couldn't take care of him any longer. These turtles can actually live up to 25 years. So if you get one of these as a pet, it's a long-time commitment. Someone had him, decided they couldn't take care of him anymore, so we ended up taking him at the aquarium. But Bob doesn't like to be held too much, so I'm going to respect his wishes and put him back in the water so that he can swim. Perfect. So you've met our 3 turtles, and I hope that you liked meeting them, and I hope you liked seeing them. And I just want to talk a little bit about what you can do to actually help these turtles, because sometimes with diamondback terrapins or these animals, it kind of seems like the issue is so big that there's nothing you can do about it. But let's talk about it a little bit. If you want to be able to help these turtles, there's a few ways you can do so. Here we go. First off, you can help support conservation efforts. So there's a lot of different conservation efforts that are going on in the state of Rhode Island and around the country to make sure that these turtles can survive. Some of the biggest ones are just making sure that they have nesting areas. If maybe you go to the beach in the summer and you see some areas roped off, that could be potential diamondback terrapin nesting site. So if you do see that, you want to make sure to just leave those areas alone, and that is supporting conservation efforts, and you're not disturbing nesting sites at the same time, which is awesome. And then another huge thing that you can do as an individual is just leave turtles where you find them. Maybe sometimes you'll see a turtle on the beach and you think that it's in distress, but a good amount of the time, if you see a turtle on the beach, it's going to lay eggs, or maybe it's going to its nesting site. So you definitely don't want to disturb them, because if you even move them 100 feet away, that's 100 more feet that they have to go, and that's a lot more energy that they're using. So just leave them there, and it's, you know, like I said, these turtles are really beautiful. If you want a pet turtle, there's a lot of really cool ones out there in the world that you can get, but diamondback terrapins, they belong in that brackish water in Narragansett Bay. So I hope that you enjoyed our video today. It's something to think about, because climate change seems like this huge issue, and there's a lot of animals that are affected by this. So if you look at diamondback terrapins, you can see that this huge issue trickles down and affects them in ways that you wouldn't even think of. So I hope that you enjoyed our video, and I'm going to wrap it up now. We will see you next week for another edition of Breakfast by the Bay. That will be on Wednesday at 10 o'clock. Thanks. Bye.